right? So, so what can we actually do as a youth to change the narrative? This is what gives me a sleepless night. And I believe this is what also gives you a sleepless night. So this call became very, very necessary that let us have this conversation. It should be a youth-led. That is why we do not have anybody that is a manager or country director or whatever, president or whatever on this call. It is a youth-led conversation that we share ideas amongst ourselves, that we empower ourselves to be the change makers we want to see in our society. Now, organizers of this program, Ideal Leadership Incorporated, this same vision, this same worry led me to start Ideal Leadership Incorporated. And my focus initially was developing leadership at secondary level or at JHS level. We find students there because ideally that is where the leaders for the nation start from. You realize that a lot of people in politics today, one way or the other, were engaged in some campus politics or some school politics, one way or the other. And so they transit from these stages to become leaders in Africa, leaders in our countries. And so whatever we see is whatever we failed to see when they were young and they were taking up leadership positions in school. Mind you, in 2019, my attention was caught to something where in a primary school, someone wanted to be a head prefect of the school, and the students were demanding that he bought sachet water, bags of sachet water for them before they voted him as the school prefect. And this is a very worrying development, because for me, at that stage of education, how do you request of sachet water before you vote without considering policy, without considering the person's capability, without considering very thematic things that ought to be considered before voting someone into office? And this is what I think is a bane of Africa's development, because we talk of leadership, and then you are talking of how we got the current leaders we have into place and how they are performing. So it becomes very important that we begin to look at things holistically. It becomes very important that we begin to change the narrative and take a different approach. We may have gone past that stage, but it's very important that we have a very open discussion where we can talk about things amongst ourselves, where we can align our lives, where we can talk of the strategies to take, where we can talk of approach, where we can identify some opportunities and challenges and learn how other people have been able to resolve or gone through such challenges in their leadership journey. Because I believe you and I have a role to play. And for me, I may die tomorrow, but when I die, what I want to think about is, what am I leaving on the table? Is it on the table of my family, on the table of my company, on the table of my peers, on the table or on this call? What am I going to leave on this call that is going to inspire someone? What are you on this call going to leave that will inspire me sitting right here, moderating this session? What am I going to leave? And what impact is it going to have on others? So today I want this session to impact and empower us, and I want you also to impact and empower us. This is an open session, and so you are free to make your comments. You can ask your questions in the chat room. When you have any questions, you can raise your hand. I will check it out, and then I would allow you to pass your comments so that we can actually keep this meeting in check and going properly. So we have here our panelists who are ready, and I mean, how do I say, they are all ready and all pumped up to carry us on this journey. And before I introduce the panelists to you, I want to also outline certain reasons why this webinar is really important and youth development is important in Africa. I was playing one of the poems that I'm an African from the beginning. If you didn't join early, then you were not privileged to hear that. But at the close of the meeting, I'll play that again. So you want to stay and then listen to it again. It inspires me a lot. And it is important to empower the youth because we constitute a significant portion of the African population. Africa, as a matter of fact, is the youngest continent in the world. The youngest continent, has the youngest, largest number of youth among all continents. So it is very important that we focus on the youth and we develop the youth in a way that they would become very useful resources to the continent. Developing leadership skills of young people in Africa also can help address some of the major challenges facing the continent. You can talk of poverty, conflicts, inequality, lack of economic opportunities, and also it can also help to create new generation of leaders who are better equipped to tackle these challenges. We have a number of challenges, and these are the reasons why it is very important that we engage ourselves in such an important call to advise ourselves and find ways and means to become very useful to the continent, to our families, to our nations, and to the continent at large. I wouldn't want to say much. My name is Prosper Ebuano, and I am the convener and moderator of this session today. And I have with me here all of you on this call. So you want to clap for yourself. I want to see in the chat room, are you with me? You can find emojis to clap for yourselves if you are here with us. I want you to clap for yourself for me to see that indeed you are with us. I can't see anybody. It means everybody is not with us. Okay, I can see Kennedy. Okay, Kennedy is right here with us. Right, Emilia is right here with us. Okay. Emmanuela Seko is right here with us. Okay, 3 people are here with me. What are the rest doing? Can you hear me? Aaron is here with me. Okay, great. That is good, and I'm happy. Anna Autry is here with me. Ben T, right. The youth are ready and pumped up to learn a lot today, and we are ready also to lead you in such a discussion. Godfred Jansen, great. You are here with me. Leila, you are here with me. Great. I am happy all of you made time to join this conference, and I hope that by the time you leave this place, you are leaving this place. Doris also here with me. You are leaving this place all equipped. Michael Esiedu is also here with me. You are leaving this place all equipped and able to impact your various cadres. Right. To introduce our distinguished panelists, I'm very grateful they made time to join this call. In planning this call, I had to consider I am having a little issue with people unable to join. Okay, so yeah, people are able to join now. So I went through a number of youth and I was looking at how impactful people have been in various aspects. And so and then the decision came for me to choose these 3 young people who are leading massive change in their areas of work and activities. And I would love, and I'm happy to introduce these young people to us on this call. And to introduce the first panel member, I would like to introduce Aaron Atimpe. Aaron Atimpe had been a very close pal and a very great young man representing Ghana on a lot of fronts in other countries and conferences, and he's doing actually great things in his area as well. And I want to read his bio quickly to introduce Aaron Atimpe. Aaron is an international development enthusiast with experience spanning both public and non-governmental organizations. He is passionate about youth empowerment and has worked across initiatives promoting youth participation in governance, decision-making, youth on unemployment and economic opportunities, gender equality, and social accountability. He has led a number of initiatives in the past to advocate for increased investment in youth development and empowerment in employment conditions of headquarters and other youth, which creates economic vulnerabilities that are exploited for abuse. He previously worked as an emerging public leader at the Public Policy Coordination and Monitoring and Evaluation Division of the Ministry of Finance. Also under the International Development Department of the London School of Economics, he consulted for the Overseas Departments Institute in London, conducting a study on enhancing accountability in public service delivery with focus on legislative oversight and social accountability in developing countries, drawing on experiences from Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda. Currently, Aaron works as a project manager with Star Ghana Foundation, amongst others. He engages with stakeholders to address the core drivers of violence and insecurity. So we have Aaron on this call. Aaron, you may want to put your video on, let the audience see you, and you want to give us an opening remark quickly, and then I'll introduce the next panel member, and then we can take it from there. Great. Aaron, over.
Okay, thank you, Prosper, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all of you, wherever you are joining this call from. You can forget all the long English that Prosper read. My name is Aaron Atimpe, and I like banku with okra stew, which is Ghanaian traditional food for people who are non-Ghanaian. I'm a young person. I like to work and think with young people to develop solutions to the problems that we all face as a people. And it's a great pleasure to be on this call to share ideas and discuss things that are pertinent for Africa's development with you. And I look forward to a very healthy discussion. Thank you very much.
Great. Aaron likes banku, and we're happy to have you here. So the non-Ghanaians here, you want to try our meal out, banku, you will love it so much. Right, so I'll go on to the next panel member. That is, I should have started with a lady first. Emilia Apiamenka, a very passionate lady, and I would love to speak about Emilia as an international relations expert with a background in BA Information Studies with Economics and MA International Affairs, all from University of Ghana. She is currently an LLB candidate at the University of Ghana, who democratizes leadership to inspire young Africans for purposeful living concerning their impact on the continent. She aspires to help in designing and implementing policies that will promote socioeconomic developments on the continent. She had years of working experience as a youth development consultant and rose to the rank of a country director, where he consulted in South Africa, Ghana, and few other African countries. She's volunteered for several NGOs like the NAGAP Empowerment Foundation, set up to empower women and children in Ghana, India, Kenya, and the USA, and has worked with the team to successfully launch the Pad a Girl projects, a project I am very happy about to promote menstrual hygiene among young girls in Ghana. We have Emilia on this call. So Emilia would like to also put a video on and give us an opening statement whilst we wait to start this meeting on a full vigor note. Right, Emilia, if you're here with us. Emilia was on this call. Let me see. Emilia on this call. Emilia on this call.
Can you hear me?
Right, we can hear you, Emilia.
Yeah. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
Based on where you find yourself, we're really excited to have you.
Emilia, not to cut you short, can you come get closer to your device so that it picks your sound more clearly?
Is it better?
Yes. It was way better.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm really excited to have myself here and other young people like me join this call to actually have a conversation. I know it's going to be a conversation and not just we just pouring out things onto you in order to navigate the complexities of the very challenges that we find ourselves facing on the continent. I'm pleased to meet you all. I mean, unlike Mr. Timper, I don't like banku that much, but then I can do any Ghanaian food and any food that you give me. I don't have a favorite. Any food goes, yes. So I'm glad to be given this opportunity to share with you my opinions and other things. So I'm looking forward to have a wonderful conversation with you.
Great, Emilia. I am so happy you made it, and thank you so much, Emilia. And we can also wait to hear from you. Now I will come to a very dynamic young man, and the third on the panel and the last, and that is Reginald Sekyi-Brown. He's a licensed pharmacist in Ghana. He holds a Bachelor of Pharmacy from the University of Ghana School of Pharmacy, and serves as a franchise lead, malaria, oncology, nephrology, and pain for Pharma Symbiosis Limited in Ghana. He's a host of Creators, a virtual platform aimed at celebrating and promoting ideas, innovation, and scholars committed to advancing and the development of science, medicine, and technology in Africa. And you want to check out Creators on YouTube. He does quite well with that. A very dynamic young man. He currently serves as the advocacy lead for the Young Pharmacists of Ghana and the strategic plan representative of young pharmacists and the Association of Representatives of Ethical Pharmaceutical Industries, Ghana, at the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. We also have Reginald here, interested in public health advocacy, health system thinking, and policy issues. So you see that our panel are people from diverse fields, not just from one field, because if you're talking of youth development and youth leadership, we are not talking of leadership only in politics or whatever you find it. In every area, wherever we find ourselves, we should be able to make impact there. So we have Reginald here. Reginald, you would want to put your video on and do as Aaron and Emilia did. Yeah, Reginald, your audio is off. Yeah.
Okay, can you
Yeah,
see?
that's right.
Okay, I
Yeah.
guess it's loud and clear now. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Prosper rightly said, my name is Reginald, and I think we began today's session by invoking the name of God through prayer. And I know for those who are very familiar with theological learnings, they will agree with me that there's a very interesting maxim that says that iron sharpened iron. That is from the theological background. But one of the late African authors, whom I call the prophet or the sage, Chinua Achebe, captured it rather aptly in one of his erudite submissions when he said that a man who calls his kinsmen to a feast, he does not do so to save them from starving, because they all have food in their homes. But when they gather together under the auspices of the moonlight in the village, it is not because of the moon, because every one of them can see the moon in their own compound. He added that they come together because it is good for kinsmen to do so. So I really appreciate the fact that we have this confab here today. Thank you very much, Prosper.
Thank you so much, Reginald. And for those who do not know Reginald, you can check him out on social media. And I mean, Reginald is I don't know what to say, but he was my head prefect in school. And Reginald is an amazing young man. Let me just say that. I'm sure most of you know of Reginald in the past years for various advocacies. And so I wouldn't want to go deep into that. If you remember UG Hospital, the young man that advocated for the whole Ghana for the UG Hospital to be opened, we have Reginald on this call, and we are happy to have him. Right, to start with the conversation, I would just want to indulge our audience today to know whether or not are you empowered to lead as an African on the continent. I have just dropped a poll in, so you can see a poll on the screen, on your screens. If you can't see it, you can check the 3 dots on your far right. Then you see polls, you can click on it, and then you could just answer this question quickly. So that we just take a quick survey to see, are we really empowered to lead on the continent? How is it like for you leading? Is it difficult for you? Do you feel you are confident, you are well equipped? That will direct our discussion today. We can see our results live. So quickly, 1 minute, we just do this, and then we launch straight into the conversation for today. Great. So people are voting. 14 now. We are 37 on this call. And you want to quickly cast your vote, and then we can start from there. We can start 18. All right, people are still voting. And so People are still voting quickly. Yeah, 19, I'm still counting. Can you cast your votes now? It just take a second to do that quickly, and you just want to put that through, and then we will take a discussion on, right, people are still voting, 10% of us on this call are saying you are not empowered, you are not equipped to drive change in your sphere of influence. I hope that by the end of this meeting, 17% is still going up in it, and it's an issue of worry. If you have 17% of us here, 16% who are not empowered, it becomes worrying. I hope that by the end of this meeting, you become well empowered and equipped to lead a change in your community as you want it to be. So we would take this. All right, so the poll can end anytime from now, and so we will go on. 26 of 35 participated. Right. So we will go straight to the discussion, and we will see the results in here. And we will not discuss the results, but we'll go straight to the discussion. Now, to the panelists, and I said, if you have any question, you can drop it. If you have any comments as the discussion goes on, you can drop in the chat box. With the panelists, I want to ask the first question. When we talk of leadership, how do you define leadership? And what makes leadership relevant to African youth? How do you define leadership, and what makes it very relevant to African youth? I don't know, ladies first. Emilia might want to take it first, or Aaron. I mean, now things are changing.
All right.
Right.
Ladies first. Let's maintain the order like that.
Okay, great.
I'm glad to share that. So thank you very much, Prosper. I mean, when it comes to leadership, I believe the majority of us here on the call are well acquainted with the fact that it could be synonymous with influencing a group of people, or driving or casting a vision for people to achieve a particular goal. But when you bring the African youth in this conversation, then it means we would want to have more than just influence in the space that you find yourself, because of the complexities and the different challenges we are faced on in this continent. And so beyond just influencing, beyond just gathering 2 or 3 people, we are looking at how the African youth becomes relevant in solving situations and problems on the continent in order to bring the change that we want to drive on the continent. I mean, let me just bring it to the normal conversation, where we find the relevance of a leader who has stepped up to navigate through the challenges and bring up solutions. So in your mind somewhere, there's a rhetoric. In your mind somewhere, why is a pilot being paid? Why is a pilot paid? I believe in your mind somewhere, you are thinking a pilot is paid because he flies a plane. Some will say a pilot is paid because he's able to take off and land safely. So many answers will come to your mind. So many things will come to your mind. But then I believe that a pilot is paid because the passengers are able to sit with comfort, even though there is an autopilot. I mean, all of us know an autopilot. The pilot does like just some few things, but the autopilot calculates, navigates, and does the majority of the things that when we sit on a plane, it does. Make sure we fly and make sure we land safe. So why do we have a person in there to actually get paid if there is a computer doing the whole job? But I believe the majority of us need that person to be in there because in our comfort or in our mind somewhere, whenever we face challenges or complexities in relating to the plane, in case the engine is blown off, the human factor is able to understand, navigate beyond the natural expectation to bring up the solutions in order to land us safely. That is how come a pilot is paid and a pilot is needed on the plane. And why we need leaders, or why the African leader or young African leader is very important in this conversation. As I said, beyond just influencing us, we need people who will come to navigate the very challenges that we are facing on the continent in order to bring the change that we want to see on the continent. There are so many things that are happening. There are so many challenges that we are facing. There are so many issues that are coming up, being a political, being a social, being a culture on the continent, which we all attest to, which we need people who are motivated enough, people who have a very kind of understanding, people who have been able to understand a kind of their identity in order to bring the solutions that we have. So for me, beyond the talks of just influencing anybody, we also need people who will not just influence, but go beyond to solve and understand the very challenges that we have on the continent in order to provide the solutions that we.
Great points there. Emilia has made a very great point, and it is about the impacts. We drill down to impacts. And on this call, there are a lot of leaders on this call. You can introduce yourself to anybody on this call. This is a way we can help ourselves. So you can introduce yourself to anybody on this call. I mean, the audience we have today. So Aaron and Reginald, I don't know, maybe Aaron, you want to take your point, and then we'll go from there. Emilia has made a very great point, and I believe we will climb from here. Great.
Yeah, I think it's good to have the lady speak first, because she does a very good summary and then makes the conversation very simple and straightforward. So I agree perfectly with Emilia. When we talk about leadership, there are 3 words that I usually prefer to summarize leadership as. So first is influence, like Emilia mentioned. The second is impact, or creating positive change in the lives of others. And then the last for me is sacrifice. So bringing these 3 together would mean that leadership necessarily is not a position, but it's about a certain consciousness of mind that points you to the challenges around you, where you live, and the challenges that others are facing, and then constantly thinking how you can be of help to people or to your society, or even to yourself, without necessarily waiting for someone to do everything for you. So it's about realizing what needs to be done, and then assessing within yourself and seeing what can be done. It doesn't mean you have to solve the problems all by yourself, but it means taking an initiative. It means taking a step towards finding the solutions to the problems you find around yourself. And the relevance to the African youth, or generally to the African, is that Africa is a continent of potentials, and it's the youngest continent, like you rightly put it at the start of this conversation. And as the most populous, one of the most populous continents, and one of the, perhaps the most impoverished continents, well, let me say the most underdeveloped, not impoverished, because we are very rich in a way, the most underdeveloped continent. What it then means is that there are so many problems. So every African should be a leader, because there are so many problems to be solved. That is why leadership is important to the African. And leadership, understanding leadership to the African is very key, because most often than not, you see people equating leadership to position. So then what we all do is to sit back and complain about people in political positions not doing their work, when all of us could have contributed in a way, when even people in business corporations and development organizations also have a role to play. So an understanding of leadership for the African is very key, because our problems are very enormous, and it goes beyond just a political problem. There are cultural problems, there are economic problems, there are political and social problems, which means that we cannot rely on any particular one particular stakeholder to be able to bring solutions to us. So everyone has a role to play. Yeah. And it's that makes it very imperative that we all need to understand the essence of leadership, to mean that we all have a part to play in addressing the challenges that face us and making our continent a better place for all of us.
Exactly. Aaron makes a very great point there. And the 3 pointers he mentioned, I don't want anybody to forget here. I don't know if you heard him, the 3 pointers he mentioned from the beginning, the definition of leadership. Can you put it in the chat box? What did you hear? He mentioned some 3 very important pointers. And I don't know if you heard him. Let me see if people are actually listening. You want to put it out there. What did he say about leadership? He said when you talk of leadership, he thinks of 3 things. What are they? Impact. Okay, I see the sacrifice. And what's the next one? The last one. Influence, right? People are listening. Bernard, you are right there. People are actually listening to us. I'm really happy we are all paying attention on this call. So we have Mr. Reginald, dynamic young man. and doing so great in so many other areas. What do you think of leadership? How is it important to Africa?
Well, so my conception of leadership, I actually want to express my gratitude to Aaron and Emilia for setting the pace, because they've made my work pretty easy. And as Africans, we are storytellers by default. So I'll try to tell a story to explain what leadership is using two key personalities. So the first personality is the very first headmaster of the secondary school I attended, in the person of Kwesi Planch. That was Kwesi Planch, and the house has been named after him. And then there's the ever dynamic John Mensah Saba, also had a hall in the University of Ghana named after him. Why am I invoking these two gentlemen to explain what leadership means? Mensah Kane was a very dynamic and young headmaster who was the very first acting headmaster of Ghana National College. And at the age in his 20s, he was introduced, or he broke that barrier to qualify for what today we call the Parliament House. Before independence, we had what we call the Legislative Council. And if you look at the age group of most of the legislators in that chamber at the time, you have people mostly in their 40s and their 50s and all that. But a young Kwesi Planch was able to break that stereotype and become one of the youngest legislators in Africa, British West Africa at the time. What a lot of people do not realize is that you and I are here today and we have a voice. We have a national voice because people like Kwesi Planch advocated in the 1950s for the reduction of the age, the voting age, from 25 years to 21. So even though today you need to only be about 18, previously in the past, that was not the case. And the very argument that Kwesi Planch made in the Legislative Council in July 1950 was that he felt that most of the people who were making the decisions at that time were in their 40s, and they were not giving the youth the opportunity to make decisions that were going to affect them in their future. So clearly, this was someone who did not want to take a back seat. This is where the idea of taking responsibility. So leadership is about taking responsibility. That's the first point. I invoke John Mensah Saba because John Mensah Saba was a very versatile lawyer who, when the Gold Coast land question became very key. Today, we are talking about, last year, there was a whole fracas about the Achimota forest where people were talking about properties being willed to people forever and what have you. Now, before we got what we have today, for you and I to be able to even own properties, you know, we as a nation, we have come from what we call colonialism. And key in that area or in that era was what we called the land question. And the land question was not an incident only in Gold Coast or today Ghana. But if you move to other parts of the African continent, because we are talking about African Youth Conference or leadership, I want to situate that on a continental level. So wherever the white man went, he tried to wrestle the land from the locals or the indigens. In Ghana, that was a very prime case. When you go to places like Kenya, which resulted in what we call the Mau Mau Rebellion, those things also happened. In South Africa, you see segregation, which still happens to an extent today. All these were largely because of the land question. I'm saying this to pinpoint the idea of what constitutes leadership. when John Mensah Saba, who was a young lawyer at that time, was approached by chiefs and other Gold Coasters, he did not renege on his responsibility. He was a young lawyer who had traveled to the UK to study. And then when he came back, he realized that there was a national crisis. He did not take a backseat. So leadership is not a spectator sport. It's about getting your hands dirty. It is what N.N. Talib calls having a skin in the game. You don't take a backseat and tell people what should be, but you should be in the game. Right. What one of the American patriots called the man in the arena. Those who take a backseat will always have a fair idea of how things should be. Yeah. In our camp balance, we say that near Ocha Kwano, you see, the person who is carving the path usually may not see it well, but leaders must always be initiators. They must be catalysts. They must be instigators. So John Mensah Saba, even though he was in his 30s, joined what we call the London deputation. So these were a group of Ghanaians or elites who went to as far as the UK to go and wrestle in the law courts for us to secure our lands. Great. So this is just to let us know that leadership is not an abstract construct. It is a phenomenon that has existed with us all this while. So I'll use these two personalities just to highlight what my two very co-panelists have highlighted on what constitutes leadership. Thank you.
Right. This makes leadership very relatable for you and I on this call. Because in my corner, then I've heard John Mensah Saba's story, I've heard Kwesi Plan's story, and I'm thinking of responsibility. And I'm also thinking of leadership as leaders as catalysts, or leadership as not a spectator sport to take, but actual work that I have to put myself in. Right. Then this leads to quite a very important question. Quite a very important question I want to ask, and we want to get quick answers to. How can the youth be catalysts, just on a broad level? How can the youth be catalysts on the continent? Because as catalysts, then we are actually preparing a reaction to some positive development or delivery we want on the continent. How can we be that? In what capacity can we serve that purpose? You mentioned Mensah Saba, but we want to relate it to 21st century African youth. How can we actually be catalysts to that? Yeah, Benjamin Terria has caught the leadership, not a spectator sport. Yeah, right. That is very important to note. So back to Aaron, you will start with us first. How can the youth, African youth, actually be catalysts on the continent?
Okay, so I think that was a very important catchphrase. So how can the youth be catalysts? Sort of in the chemical sense, I think Reginald would explain it better because he's the pharmacist here. In the chemical sense, sort of the reactions that result in a particular outcome, if I'm right. So you look at the continent of Africa and you see the challenges we face in terms of development, and then the opportunities we have in terms of the resources we have, resources both human and physical resources. And then you're asking how can youth appraise on some of these resources, both the human and non-human resources, to ensure that Africa becomes a better continent. And I would say that can be done in a variety of ways, either individually, but then also in collaboration. So young people, you mentioned Reginald when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and then there was a whole big hospital locked up, and there were not enough hospitals to serve as referral points for the treatment of people who caught the disease. He was a catalyst at that point by ensuring that a lot more Ghanaians had access to better treatment for COVID, just by the simple act that he took of protesting. It started as a one-man protest, and then soon it became two, soon it became tens of people. And before we realized, it became a whole campaign that caught up with so many people, and then government had no choice than to fast-track the processes leading to the opening up of that facility to ensure that a lot more people had better treatment during that difficult moment of our lives. So the point I am making simply is that there are so many opportunities and then there are so many challenges. And it's usually the challenges that we live in and the opportunities that those challenges present us that create the opportunities for people to be able to make an impact in society, that create an opportunity for people to be able to exert leadership. So I think I usually do not want to point to the people that become the usual target when we're talking about leadership. So I prefer to talk about people who are often not seen in the blogs, who are often not seen in traditional and social media. So look at young people who are causing change through their churches. Look at young people who are causing change through just by merely projecting the stories of people who are living under certain conditions on social media, and then using that powerful tool as a platform to sort of mobilize resources to address those challenges without waiting for government. So we know in Africa, one of the weakest things we have is our national health insurance scheme. So these days you see a lot of young people just come together, form a small group, and then they pick up some of these stories. I prefer to call it throwing the light on the things that are usually forgotten or that would fall off the cracks, because these are people who live in very remote areas and no one's attention is ever going to go on them. So these are catalysts causing real change, ensuring that human capital at the very remotest of areas in the continent are developed. And there are people who are taking the charge on the climate risk that we are all faced with. And there's this young friend of mine in a very remote area in the northern region of Ghana. At the moment, if you follow the news, you realize that a lot of us in West Africa, in the Sahelian region, are very prone to the activities of violent extremist and terrorist organizations. And one of the key drivers of that is usually disunity and then religious intolerance. And this is a young guy who had just completed training college, and he was a teacher making less than 2,000 Ghana cedis a month. And he decided to devote his time, gather other young people across the region and outside of the region, and form what he called the African Students for Interfaith Tolerance. And now that small organization that started in a small village in Wale now has prominence. And this week, I was very happy to see him making a presentation in Doha in Qatar, in one of the very big conferences on religious tolerance. And that is one of the very key strategies that are used by governments and even international organizations to try to fight the terrorist threats. And this is just a young guy who completed training college. He could have lived a comfortable life in the village of Wale, teaching and taking his 2,000 cedis or less a month, and he would be able to make a decent living. But he felt that he lived in a bigger society with needs that are far bigger than he could imagine. And he decided to take a step. And that step has now blossomed into something bigger. And now he's making the waves in the international scene. So a lot of us see that we don't see from where he started. We only see him at the international scenes, making the presentations and getting all the good flags. And then we want to be like him without trying to understand where it's all started from. And I'm going back to the point of being aware of the society, of the environment within which you live, seeing what needs to be done, and seeing within yourself as an individual or as a group, what you can do in contribution to those challenges.
Yeah, right. Aaron, you have extensively discussed this point, and I would love to have taken comments from Emilia and Reginald on the same topic, but the topic is so broad. Emilia, I want to ask, what influenced you, because you are also a youth leader and you are doing so much in your area, what influenced you, Emilia, to start what you are doing? Because we are talking about how the youth can actually serve their communities, how you can be a catalyst. So Emilia, what influenced you as a catalyst in your area of work? And what have you encountered some challenges that you want to talk about. I mean, if there are any challenges you've encountered and what influenced you especially, and how are you faring with your efforts of leadership? Emilia, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So if I'll answer this question, then it will take me back to dwell on what Aaron shared initially about looking at our immediate surroundings to find the problems that we are encountering as individuals, opportunities that we are all seeking. And so for me, what influenced me was my immediate environment, what was missing out, the various challenges that came, and how I could be of benefit in solving the problems. I've been a youth development consultant for years now. And one thing that drives me is to bring up and then build up young people to take up some of these challenges in their own small space without looking at the bigger platform in order to solve the solutions and the problems in their particular regions or areas that they find themselves. So let me just share this with you. I ran a youth leadership group on campus, University of Ghana campus. And why, as I shared with you, I needed to create that space for young people to be able to step up, to also understand leadership and the role they play in their little small way. I met this young man from level 100, right from when we mentored him and everything. He's currently a first-class student in economics and statistics, which is a big deal on University of Ghana campus, to have a first class in economics. Initially, his mind was to become a teaching assistant or maybe work with one of those big firms. But during the vacation, he found himself an internship job, and then he stopped. And I asked why he stopped. He said he wanted to go back to Ho, where he comes from, a village close by Ho, to go and stay there and help with whatever he can help. Now he goes there, and then he found out that the high school students, they weren't properly taught. So he dedicated his time, gathered the other university students around, influenced them, and they ended up going to the school, teaching the students for over a month and weeks afterwards, impacting them and challenging them to do more. Why am I sharing with this story? Why am I sharing this story with you? I could have looked beyond me and would have thought, if I'm given a bigger platform, maybe on the UN Youth or whatever, to make my voice to be heard. But when I stepped on campus and I realized that people needed grooming, people needed mentorship, people needed to be challenged to take up these opportunities and also identify challenges and solve, I took it up in my immediate space, as Aaron was sharing with us. It doesn't take anything. It doesn't take any bigger platform. It doesn't take anything. It's just your immediate surroundings. What you see there, the problems there could be climate, it could be gender inequality, it could be a good education that you want to provide, it could be something beyond what everybody is selling that you found or identify as a unique problem that you want to solve in order to propel the growth. If we are all solving it in our little spaces, I believe that collectively we will end up making the most impact that we have. Let me just end with this. Now in sub-Saharan Africa, we have 70% of our population, which is around 743 million, if I'm not wrong, being less than age 30. Out of the 100, which is about 1.0 something billion, sub-Saharan Africa alone, under the age of 30, telling us that in the next few years or even now, we have the resource or we have the right resource or human capital to nurture them to solve the problems that are facing us as a continent. And so if we are able to identify the spaces, let's say out of the 743 million, 1 million or 1% of it even identify problems and they are solving actively on the continent, wow, our continent will be a very great one. We will look internally than externally. We will begin to think Afrocentric and make the necessary impact and actually put Africa on the platforms globally that we need. So as the immediate environment, I don't look anywhere, I don't look far, just what is around that I can solve.
Great. I think Emilia deserves a clap, and you can clap on this platform. You can do whatever you want. You can shout for him on this platform. I mean, Emilia, congratulations for, identifying the challenge in your immediate community. And also the young man you spoke about, very inspiring. So it means that leadership actually is looking out for the challenges therein in our communities and finding solutions to them. And not necessarily waiting for someone to say, I call you to be the youth ambassador for education or youth ambassador for public health before you see that as leadership. But even in your home, in your community, you can actually be a leader in such a small space. Youth of Africa, let us rise beyond colors to ideas. Let us look beyond the glamour and the big stage lights to our various communities and identify such problems there, and we find solutions to them. Now, Reginald, I want to come to you. When we talk of leadership, or when we talk of Africa's development, there are very thematic and very critical things that hamper the kind of developments that we want. One is the cultural differences. I don't know whether linguistically we can say that is a challenge. We can talk of the religious differences we have. How do we navigate these differences that the continent presents to us to actually deliver the development we want? How do we do that? How do we do that?
Okay, thank you very much, Prosper. So because we are, this conference is dubbed an African Youth Leadership Conference, and I need to issue a slight disclaimer that usually for you to elect to speak on behalf of a continent, you must at a minimum have some form of lived experience in most, if not all, the countries in Africa, for you to be able to give a holistic view on the continent. Because usually we get offended when, let's say, excuse me to say, foreigners generalize Africa or pigeonhole us into one frame. For us to do this or work together, in terms of collaboration, I want to give us a bit of a context. So Prosper and Emilia and then Aaron and the audience, this conference we are having is only a time in history, because many years ago, such conferences had happened in the past. Let me just help us bring it home. Somewhere in, let's say, the early 1920s, but even before that, right? I'll try and drive us from the 1800s today, just for you to have a fair idea based on the question you asked. From the 1800s to the early 1920s to the 50s, we had what we call the West African Youth League. So you realize that our forefathers had already been collaborating in time past. And the West African Youth League was started by one gentleman called Wallace Johnson. And our own J.B. Dankwa and other elites were part of it. Now, when you bring it home, you go to a place like, so that was the West African Youth League. There were other such groups, international collaborations across Ghana, previously Gold Coast, Nigeria, and all that. And there were linguistical barriers, even during those times. So the question is, how were they doing it? So it was basically about fronting or driving the ideas. They were very clear that this was what, so they set an agenda. This is what we want for at the national level. This is what we want at the continental level. Now, regardless of the differences in language, regardless of the differences in skin color, what have you, the food they eat and what have you, they still found a way to work together because they were united by the outcome that they had set based on the agendas they had. Recently, let me bring it home, we have the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So it tells you that consistently, we have not, this is not novel, we have always been working together. It's only about the unity of purpose, the unity of ideas, because if you can have, like the European Union, you can have groups where foreign, like now we have the BRICS, we have Britain, we have Brazil, Russia, India, and China also coming together to form what we call the BRIC. So there have been those collaborations in time past till date. So linguistical barriers or economical challenges may not hamper them, so long as there's unity of ideas. What really matters most to get us collaborating more is to always bear in mind that the competition is not local. The competition is global. So anytime we look at or we remember what Nkrumah said on the eve of Ghana's independence, that we are capable of managing our own affairs. The moment we remember that, it tells us that we cannot afford to fail. So collaboration would be key to make sure we harness our full potential as a continent. So one, it is not only about the why, but the how. And the how is where we break all these ethnic barriers, we break all these national barriers. And just as the European Union and other BRIC societies are able to see the unity in amalgamating their resources, the same way we can do in Africa. So this is my preliminary response to your
I think, Reginald, you make a very important point, taking us back into the decades ago where there was such collaboration. And so now we need to veer off from probably the differences, because I mean, really, there is no difference. There are no differences amongst us. So I am happy this question has led to this point of we need to think about collaboration and how we would actually do it. So we move beyond the little differences we see. And mind you, the differences also become challenges. And we have said from the beginning of this conference that the challenges are what present us the opportunity to actually lead or become leaders, effective leaders in our communities. So it's very important that we note these on this call. In fact, we have said that this is a very interactive session. So at this point, I want to take like a 5 minutes break. If anybody on this call, we have discussed a couple of questions to this point. If you have any point to make, you can just raise your hand and I'll let you in and you just make your point, because we are here to learn from ourselves. None of us here is a top expert on this topic, but we believe when we collaborate, I mean, on the point of collaboration, we want to collaborate with you. What idea do you have to share with us? What thoughts do you have to put across that we need to consider in our effort to be effective leaders in our various roles in our communities? So the floor is open. You can unmute yourself, but to ensure that there is no a lot of people and you're muting at the same time, you can lift your hand and then I'll just do that. But you can put a comment in there. If you can see where you lift your hand, you can put a comment. Then I'll let you in and then you can make your comments. 40 people on this call. Certainly there's someone who has something to share with us. I mean, there are senior colleagues on this call, so people we can actually learn from. We have some minutes to do that. It's a collaborative session and we don't want to be the only ones talking. I can't see any hand up, but if I ask a question, what did you hear Reginald say? Here you see people putting it in there. They are listening attentively, but they don't want to share with us the ideas they have. You can talk on any of the topics. You can talk on the general topic of youth leadership. What challenges do you see? So the audience, okay, this question goes to you. What challenges do you see? Okay, Vasco. I can see Vasco's hand up. Okay, Bismarck Achen, and then Emanuela. Then I'll take a comment from Vasco as well. So Bismarck, you can come in and then make your comments. Bismarck, we cannot hear you. If you don't mind, you can introduce yourself, what you do. I mean, this is a call, young people, we can connect here and then.
Good evening.
Oh, Bismarck, so what you will do is that your line is not too clear, and so you would want to reposition yourself while we take Emmanuel Seko's comments, then I'll quickly come back to you.
I'm Bismarck from Accra, around the Wenya. Okay.
Yeah. So, Emanuela, you want to come in and then make your comments. Then we'll come back to Bismarck and take a comment from Vasco as well.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, loud and clear.
It's amazing how you have been calling me Emmanuel throughout the call.
Emanuela, sorry.
That's fine. And thank you very much to our panelists. I think one thing that really challenges us as youth is many a times we do not want to speak up. And many a times we are not taking advantage of opportunities because we actually have so many things around us. We have so many things we can do, as a lady speaker said. But the thing is that we are waiting for someone to just hand them over to us. It's important that any opportunity we see, day in, day out, we prepare ourselves for these opportunities. So when they come, we can grab them and leverage on them to help the younger ones that are coming after us. And at certain points in time, I'm not saying everywhere you go, you have to speak up, but at certain points in time, when your voice has to be heard, you definitely have to speak up. As youth, when we compare ourselves, the Africans and the Europeans, one thing that makes them very distinct is they speak up and they speak their mind. They speak about how they feel and all that. So the youth of Africa, we need to speak up and we need to grab opportunities and day in, day out, prepare for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emanuela. You make a very important point. Preparation, we will come to that. How do we prepare as a youth? How do we do it? So I was supposed to come back to Bismarck. Bismarck is off the call. He will come back again. So I'll take Vasco, then I'll come to Bernard Echampo. Then we'll continue from there. Vasco.
Hello, Prosper.
Hi, Vasco.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and congratulations to you. Prosper, it's like Bismarck is talking, so let's put him under control before I do.
Okay, Bismarck, can you hear me?
Yes, please. I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear now. So.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's kind of a mind exposure information this evening for all of us who have been connected. Yeah. If I heard you clear, you said we have to look at within our community and then identify little challenges that we have. But not to look at maybe jumping from the bottom to the international level platform, but we look around your community, in your society, the challenges and the problems that we have, then we identify them, we begin from there before we can get to the top platform.
Right.
But when you look at that in Ghana here, we have a lot of challenges around us. But then we, the youth, are just outside talking, and we have no power. We have we can't do anything about it. All we do is to talk, and then go and sleep. Yes. So, and Ghana is a place that I would say it is a society.
Bismarck, I think Bismarck's point is well made. And talking about, youth in Ghana, because Bismarck is Ghanaian, and of course we have, because we might have people from other African countries on this call, Bismarck is talking of the Ghanaian circumstance where the youth will love to talk. And Bismarck is saying, as Ghanaians, we need to rise up beyond the talk and actually be people of influence. We need to rise up beyond that and become people of influence. So Bismarck, thank you so much. And we need not look at international level. It starts from home before it goes out there. If we are not doing it well here, we are going to fail at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we are working for our nations and the continent as a whole. So we need to look at this. So Vasco, we will come quickly to you and then you make your comment. People are ready to talk and we will take all your comments. Then we'll come back to the panelists. Right, Vasco.
Prosper, thank you. But let's pick those who have questions to ask, and maybe I can come in when they are done.
Okay,
Since
Vasco has brought a good suggestion on board. Among those who have lifted their hands, if anyone has a question, you can put it across. If you have a question, you can put it across. I see Ola Samson, Louise, my big man, unmute himself. Do you have a question with that for us, or you have a suggestion so that after Vasco, all of you can come in and make a suggestion?
Yes, thank you very much, my brother. In fact, I'm really happy this session is happening and all the speakers have been amazing.
Ola, can you please reposition yourself a little bit for us so that we can hear you loud and clear? We don't want to miss anything you are saying. It is too important for us to miss out the information you're passing on.
Amazing. It's an opening kind of program that is happening right now, and I wish we really learn a thing or two. Just like, oh, hello, am I clear now?
Yeah, you are clear now. You are.
Yes, thank you. So as I was saying, just like our lady said in her submission, right. The only thing the African youth we can do right now is to speak out. Gone are those days where people will be picking guns and ammunition to fight and all that. Right now, the only weapon we have as the African youth is to speak. Let's speak truth. Let's put our leaders on their toes by speaking truth to power. We shouldn't be afraid. You get me? Just like the ladies, that's the difference between us and not bring them down if they want to speak up. Because Africa, we have it all. There is nothing we do not have as a continent. And yet, what do we see? Our youths are poor, crossing the sea, dying, all in the name of going to seek for greener pastures. You get me? Meanwhile, all the resources that Africa has, Africa can use these resources to develop Africa and create opportunities for its youths. Yeah. So sometimes I ask myself, where did we go wrong as a people, Africans? At what point did we get it wrong? Is it that leadership in Africa distorted at the point, or we've never gotten it right from the one? You get my point? Yeah. So I want to encourage the African youth. It is the time. It's not going to be easy, and in unison with one accord, I believe someday liberation will come and the continent shall be set free, and we shall also develop just like the Europeans have developed right now. Thank you.
Right. So Ola asked the big question. Ola asked the big question. We have it all, but I mean, how are we going to get our way through? And so Ola, thank you so much. And for the clarion call that we need to rise. And by rising, we don't mean pick weapons. No, we mean be a leader to cause the change in your community. By rising, we don't mean an uprising, or I mean, sort of, you know, if I say uprising, you get it. But we don't mean that. We mean people who would say, no, this is wrong. How do I influence that change? So we are looking at that. And Ola, thank you so much for, I mean, the clarion call and for encouraging us and inspiring us to rise to our feet and beginning to talk about things that we need to talk of. So we would take Vasco, then I'll come to Nicholas, Frederick, and then Bernard, and then we will move on. So Vasco.
Thank you, Prosper. I think mine is a comment and that I wanted to make, and not actually a question. But I first want to thank your good self and the speakers for sharing elaborately on this point today. And it's been a very informative session that I wish we could continue to have all year round. And my point that I wanted to make, or the comment I wanted to make, was on the rhetoric that Ola asked, where did we go wrong? And as you said, we went wrong I mean, from your introduction of the purpose for the ideal leadership in corporation, the principles or the basis for which ideal leadership in corporation was formed, that is where we went wrong, because we got everything wrong from the beginning. And because of that, people grow up to leadership positions. They don't have foundation, they don't have fundamentals, they lack value, they don't even know what they're about. Apart from the fact that they are going to occupy the position, they don't have any value that they ascribe to. We do not know them before they get to those places. We do not know what they stand for. Before you realize they've just stepped up nowhere, and then they want to serve political leaders. So my point is that organizations and efforts like the ideal leadership should be supported and encouraged so that we can raise ethical young people from the very basic through tertiary levels. I mean, this year is better, but 2017, 2018, the kind of national leadership that we had from the student front had been very poor. And on some campuses, student election turned violent because there were, I mean, snatching of ballots here and there. It doesn't make sense. Why would we as tertiary students, the youth who we are being groomed for the future, have to go and be snatching ballot boxes for our colleagues to become SRC presidents in the name of what? Right. So we went wrong because we did not know, or we don't think that leadership at the primary school, leadership at home, leadership at the Sunday school is important, and we've allowed these people to grow up without forming those valuable values that a leader is supposed to have before assuming leadership positions. So for me, the wake-up call is let's go back to the roots and forget about, I mean, for us, we have gone wrong already, but we cannot afford to let the next generation go wrong. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Vasco. You make a very important point there also. And thank you for also calling for support for Ideal Leadership Incorporated. We look to, I mean, scale these up where we can actually put our hands to work, and not, it won't just be talk like this, but we actually want to put our hands to work and see the results of our work. Now, for Nicholas, Frederick, Bernard, and Bismarck, who have a point to make, I want you to consider this question in your submission. Mohammed Shaibu has asked a very important question, that how can a leader build a strong team or strong leadership connection with his or her fellows? Because we are talking of, I said, this is a core where we can actually connect as youth and empower ourselves. And Mohammed is asking, how can you actually build that strong connection of like-minded fellows to impact your leadership or to impact your efforts in your community? So I would come to, I think Frederick's hand came up before Nicholas. I want to be fair on this. So Frederick, you come in, and then Nicholas would come. Then we'll take Bernard, a champion. If I've not mistaken the times the hands were raised, and then we'll come to Bismarck, Angel, and then we'll get back to the panel members. So Frederick, Yankee. Yes, Frederick, your mic is on, but I can't hear you yet. Frederick, you may want to check your device. Your mic is on, all right, but we can't hear you. So I'll go straight to Nicholas so that we can take Nicholas, and I'll come back to you again. So I'm not running away from you. I'll come back to you. So Nicholas Adamensa, doctor, we want to hear from you, medical doctor. What is happening, and what do you have to share with us?
All right, thank you very much, Prosper, for this opportunity, and I want to congratulate you and your team for putting this event together. And I mean, the submission so far has been spot on. Wow, very academic, very practical, and very in depth. For me, leadership in itself is broad, right, and something that if you begin to talk about, it will never end. But right, one of the authority in leadership is John C. Maxwell, right, and John C. Maxwell will say that everything rises and falls on leadership. Nothing will get better without somebody taking the lead. It's as simple as that. So leadership that has become very critical if you want to change our status quo, change what is happening in our country, in our society, and on a continent. However, you don't just get to know leadership or become a good leader. You must be taught. It requires some form of intentionality, some form of training, to understand what goes into leadership, what leadership is about, how we can become a good leader. These are things that in our continent, in our society, we are not taught. Fine, I mean, the cultural setting, the kings are trained. I mean, once you are from a royal family, they train you to succeed the king. But generally in our school setting, in the church setting, on the lower side, they do, but we are not taught how to lead. It's a first problem that, I mean, and I'm not the only one who have identified that problem. I'm sure wherever you are, you have that challenge. That's why we are discussing this issue of leadership. So we need to build people to understand leadership. And he further describes that there are three seeds of leadership: the competence bit, the first seed is the competence bit, the character bit, and the compassion bit. So the characters of good or effective leaders, they tend to build their competency. They are well read, they understand the issues, they understand the problems, they tend to understand their history, their culture, the people they are dealing with, and then they're able to influence them and lead them to where they need to be. They have character, unquestionable character. People are leaders, effective leaders, they speak and they do what they speak. They don't just speak and sit down and expect that things will be done. No. They lead leaders. These are kind of leaders that we need to be as young people. We need to know and be taught how to develop that kind of character as a leader, as a young leader. And then the compassion, caring for people. And if you don't care about yourself, how do you care about people? So we need to care. I mean, those leaders are taught, those effective, not just any, I mean, the effective leaders are taught how to be compassionate. So these are things that we are not taught. We just go through and expect that we will be able to become good leaders. No, it doesn't happen that way. So how do we acquire those competencies, mold ourselves to have that kind of unquestionable character, and then have that feel for people around us? Right. We must be aware of ourselves. If I don't know myself, how do I get to identify a problem in my community? No, I need to be aware of who I am. I'm Nicholas. These are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. This is where I come from. This is where I want to go. Right. Once you are aware of yourself, you can be able to attract people who help you to achieve who you are. Exactly. That is where the response to Shaibu's question. Yeah. If you know yourself, you know the people who support you get to wherever you want to be able to influence people. And that will be your network. Right. Because if I know myself, I know what to do, which programs to attend, which people I need to care. So I'll call Emilia, because I know Emilia. I know that Emilia is in today's day. So when I'm forming a team, I'll call Emilia, I'll call Aaron, I'll call Prosper. You understand? So knowing yourself is key. If you want to be an effective leader, not just any is a material leader. You want to be an effective transformation leader. You need to be aware. And then
thank you so much.
After being aware, you have to be intentional about it. Right. And then be willing to invest in your personal growth, because you cannot give what you don't have. Exactly. You see, that's some of the things. So we need to invest in our personal growth. We need to understand what goes into leadership, and then we can be able to lead as young people, influence our communities, touch lives, and transform our society.
Thank you so much.
You need to read, connect with like-minded people, willing to have an accountability like partners. So I know that Prosper is my friend. Prosper, I tell Prosper, Prosper, I want to do this. Can you help me? If I say, and Prosper knows about it, you said that you do this in this time, have you done it? Then I'll be checked, and then I'll go back and go and implement whatever I say. So that's some of my perspective on leadership, and we all need to get it right. And thank you very much.
That is a very, very, very valid perspective you shared there. I mean, very key points you mentioned. Leaders are people of character, first of all, and you have to be compassionate. I mean, first of all, of yourself and of your people you want to serve. So, I mean, these are very important points you raised, Nicholas, and thank you so much. Nicholas is also doing marvelously well in health. Started a network, a Youth for Health network. You can check it out. That's couple of programs and also leading change in his area. And I believe we can all do same. So I will come quickly to, I promise I'll come to Frederick Yankee, and then I'll come to Bernard Champon, and then Bismarck Enchel. Then we'll get back to the panel members quickly. So Frederick, we are back to you again. Frederick, your mic is on, but we can't hear you, unfortunately. If you can hear me, probably you may want to check your mouthpiece, whether with the earpiece or any device you're using. You may want to check that. We still cannot hear you. No sign of you talking, but your mic is actually on. So we'll go quickly to Bernard. Frederick, I've not forgotten about you. I will try again. Bernard Champon, then we'll try you again. And then in the meantime, you can also put your comments in the chat box. It might be a lot to text, but so you can try to work on the microphone so that we can hear whatever input you have to make for us this evening. So Bernard Champon, we are ready to receive from you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, great. Congratulations to yourself, and then kudos to the speakers and your team as well.
Thank you.
Well, I would love to touch on just the gentleman in smoke. Forgive me for messing out on the name.
Reginald Sekyi-Brown. Reginald Sekyi-Brown. Right.
Great. He spoke about, you see, I sent a conversation on how to actually do it, and he touched on it very, very. I'm applauding for him on that. How to do it. Just like Emilia said, she is on campus. And Emilia, I'm doing similar thing to what you're doing as well here in Bunu region. And this, let me point to this. If you check the comments passed by, just ended comment from Dr. Adai, you realized, let me give you this task. Look for the bio of all the people who have attended this conference and check what they are doing. These are all leaders doing something, but there are actually people who should be here to be impacted by these knowledgeable people who are not here. Now, my other problem is that the people we need to talk to get informed what leadership actually are, don't want to, I don't know how to put it, whether they don't want to or they are not ready to be influenced or to be led. Also, let's go to the grassroots, just like my gentleman in the smoke said. You see, you started that he was your SP back in school, your prefect. Now look at where he is and what he is doing. So let's go back. Back at uni, I completed UCC. I'm not pointing fingers or anything. Just look at people who were in positions, people who were occupying SRC positions, committee positions, and all of those. Look at their attitude. Look at how some of them were inflating, figures and putting up when they are coming up with their budgets, an event which can cost like 6,000. If you look at the figures these people put there, we always point fingers at our leaders, the old people, but we are also coming up. Now look at everybody's mentality. When I get the opportunity, I want to be MP, I'm going to chop money. If you speak with your friends, let's be honest with ourselves. A lot of our age mates, people who are even beneath us, people who are now in uni, people who have come out already, people who are, and the whole leadership, when you talk about leadership in Ghana, excuse me if I am wrong, but that is how I am seeing it. In Ghana, we are just focusing on politicians. Leadership, politicians. And they have created this factory, or should I say incubator, that is producing the same thing. So they just socialize everything they have onto the coming people. So example, if you visit the NPP, there's a personality that has boys that are following him, who believe in his principles. Now look at whether who is coming to be the flag bearer for the NPP. It's a big issue. Ordinarily, yes, it's supposed to be, but I'm just talking about the fact that there are some socializations that are happening that we need to break these boundaries. We need to break them, else it would affect us in future, because they just put all of the bad things we don't want in our leadership front. They just socialize it to the young people who are coming. So there's that problem we need to look at. And my last submission is just the question that let me share this story of a friend. It just happened last Friday. She works at one of the headquarters in Accra, where the boss is a woman. And then they had to edit a document. They have the template already where they would just put the new facts or information there, and then they are done. About 32 pages. My brother, you won't believe that. This lady had gone to work by 4 in the morning, at dawn, 4 a.m. to start working on these documents. A 32-page document. She was somewhere 28. This woman, old woman came, they call themselves BBC, born before computer, came and said, no, look, you clean everything. Undo to the start. Let's start everything again. I want to see it. And you see what happened? They just allowed. And they just gone to reach about the 6th page, and the woman said, okay, I'm closing, I'm going home. Continue. Wow. Someone who had done about 28 pages, almost finishing. Now, there's a lady who loves her work. She's trying her best, leading in her own way, in her own small corner, trying to make a difference. Now, this is what is happening. It has happened to me as well. Myself, I'm a teacher and a journalist as well. Okay. And the old people, I think it was Emanuela also talking about speak up, and also Ghanaian youth do not want to take opportunity. We really want to take opportunities. But how do we compensate for the, should I say, lack of trust, or they don't believe they don't believe we are competent enough to handle some of these things? What is the age for the youngest president in our history? Let's check all of these things. And then just a quick comment on Dr. Ade's comment that we are not teaching leadership. For me, let me do campaign. I'm a teacher. We are really helping these kids take up leadership positions, and we are making sure they are responsible and they are accountable for whatever positions they are given. And my church as well is doing excellent. Presbyterian Church of Ghana. Let me do campaign for my church, please. I was having a conversation 2 days ago with some church members, and they were like, have you noticed that Presbyterian Akwalabia can, lead a service? Say, at least you have your MCing skills. Because you are given opportunity. In some churches, you don't have those opportunities. So yes, we might have our own ups and downs, but we are trying to, mold our people into correct leaders. Thank you.
Bernard, thank you so much. You make very, very, very important points on this call. And I wish we had a lot of time to listen to Bernard, making very valid points. And all of us, we've been to the university, and whether university, wherever level of education, you see this thing like leaders, as young as they are at our level, doing things that you least expect to find there. And that is a very worrying development. And like I said from the beginning, this is what leads into the bigger picture. That is why most of the time we are talking of people in authority, and we fail to look at ourselves and those behind us. So Bernard, you make a very important point, and I have put a poll in the chat again. 16 out of 32 have participated yet, and I'm asking a question: do you think African youth are being adequately represented in leadership positions? And a whopping 88% says no. So it means we have an issue, and people are still voting anyway. We would go to Frederick Yankee again to try to see if we can hear from Frederick. And I hope that this time we are able to. So Frederick, if you can hear from me, please unmute yourself and speak loud and clear so that we can take from you.
Okay. Hello. Good evening.
Yes. Good evening, Frederick.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Clearly.
All right. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very grateful to be part of this seminar, or should I say conference. I think I'm learning a lot. So the little that I have to add up to whatever that has been said here is that in as much as we are fighting for the youth to rise up and then speak, we have to also try and make sure that we have a working, policy that is in favor of the youth. You know, we've been talking about youth empowerment and all those things, but have we ever thought of maybe putting together maybe a working youth policy that will empower the youth in order to take up these, leadership positions that we are talking about? You know, we've been talking about politicians not being effective, not being transformational, but we, the youth, are also not doing something that will, give us the chance to also take up leadership positions. This is because we are ineffective. We are not doing anything. We just speak and we don't act. That is how I see it. And this is because we don't have a working policy that is to guide us with the youth. That will be like a roadmap to us to, follow our passions and what we are supposed to do in our communities. And even if you are trying to do something in your community, there are systems, even our systems in Ghana here, it's not helping the youth. Because as I'm talking, I'm working on a project. I'm currently working on a cassava project. And the kind of regulations and then the tip-offs that I'm supposed to make or to pay to some officials before I get some recommendations or um, some of the documents that will guide me do my project. It's not easy. At times you go to an office that you're not supposed to pay anything and you've been asked to pay money before you get maybe a document to guide you do whatever thing that you want to do. So for me, I think in as much as we are supposed to speak up, I think we have to also fight for the system to be very favorable for the youth, so that we'll be able to rise up and do whatever thing that we want to do. That will
Very valid.
positively affect the country. Thank you.
Right. That is very valid. And when we talk of policies, policies span all industries, policies span all spheres of life. And it is what that directs, it is one thing that directs directs, can I say direct the direction of anybody in any system. And Leila is saying, Frederick, I believe this conference here is a starting point. So Leila also is saying that even though Frederick is saying we need to speak for policies to be established, Leila is saying, okay, this meeting can also influence us to, begin to direct policy the way it ought to go, so to enable us to give off our best. So Leila, your point is well noted, and Frederick, your point is also well noted. It is very important, very important points on policy there. We will come to that shortly before we close this seminar. We don't want to keep you for long, and we wish we had a whole day, but we would go through I'll get back to the panelists quickly, and then we will take some questions. We are coming to policy, role of government and private sector, and then we can call this meeting a close. So we'll close very shortly. Don't rush to leave. Thank you, everybody who made a point. Bismarck, do you still have a point, or that's the old hand that is still up? So that we get to the panelists quickly, and then we can.
Okay, thank you. I have a point. My point was, as I said, we have the youth who are ready. We identify challenges in our current system in Ghana. And you can see that what we face today is something from the beginning of Kwame Nkrumah, and it's been repeated till today. And as we speak now, we don't know when it's going to end. If we don't make action, it means that it's going to be something infinity. And Africa, Ghana, as particular, is going to suffer forever. Yes. So we, the youth, we are at the back feeling the heat, knowing what is maybe was supposed to be done for us to be okay in the country and also as a continent. But then your voice does not go any place.
Right.
You cannot penetrate any place. So you just sit in your corner, you speak and go and sleep. So this platform, in which ways can we penetrate into this system so that at least we are feeling the heat, and maybe so that our leaders over there are not kind of feeling what we are feeling, and they are not seeing what you are seeing. And we who are feeling it, we don't also have the voice. So how can we penetrate our voice into this leading from behind, so that at least our voice can bring a change? That is my question.
Okay, so Bismarck asked a very important question. So coming back to the panelists, I will want to add one more question to Bismarck's question so that when you are making your comments, you can summarize your answers on these things. And we'll take comments from all three panelists on this particular question. In addition to Bismarck's question, I want to ask, what is the role of educational institutions? I mean, we do not have the representatives from such institutions here, but we want to broadly talk about what are the roles of educational institutions. We talk of NGOs, government organizations, and governments in supporting the development of African youth leadership. This is kind of a broad thing, and I want you to take us deep into it. So we would come to Emilia started, Aaron started, so we'll come to Reginald so that you take us on this whilst you attempt to answer Bismarck's question as well. Hello, Reginald, are you with us? So quickly,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. So can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So about the role of governments, NGOs, and I mean all these stakeholders in nestling the young African leaders. So I always like to flip the script and so that we look at what has happened in the past and then situate it in the present, because what manifests today always has a roots in the past, whether regardless of how remote it is. When it comes to developing African youth leaders, we've in the past had lots of such, let me use the word, programs. So our very first president, for instance, Nkrumah, had what we call the Young Pioneers movement. And of course, a lot of people had a lot of ideological issues that movement or that group was basically a ground or a nursery to indoctrinate people in his Marxist political ideas. But of course, we could see that outside these arguments, there were very nationalistic values that were imbued in people like the very Pakwesi, Opini Pakwesi Indum. So you look at the kind of work that they have done in the course of their career, they would always give credit to Nkrumah for starting this Young Pioneer movement. And this was a national program. So it tells you clearly that nations who prioritize formation of such groups would go a very long way to influence their young leaders. Very recently, let me broaden the argument. Very recently, somewhere in 2008, and this is not to say that it has not been happening, China, let's go to Asia. The Asian continent has seen, let's take for instance, China, South Korea. They've rolled out series of youth development programs. And at the heart of these youth development programs is the careful, or let me use the word forensic care, with which they are able to identify talents. So if you look at as recent as, let's say, somewhere in the 80s, between then till now, China alone has rolled out more than 30 targeting what? Harnessing, first identifying the talents of their youth.
Yeah.
Recently, in a publication in one of the top journals, that was Nature, they were talking about what we call the YTT program, which was a youth program developed in 2008. This was to make sure that they harness all the talents of their youth in the STEM, that is science, technology, medicine. So it tells you that nations that want to get ahead always preemptively or proactively take the destiny or the the nursing of their next generation seriously.
Right.
The United States, for instance, is not doing anything differently. So you see programs like YALI, initiatives, and what have you. Recently, one young pharmacist drew my attention, and this was a program for global leaders development. It's called the Schwazan Scholars, where you meet a host of global leaders, young people from all over the world. And this was a young Ghanaian pharmacist, Jeremiah Sekyi, who qualified to for that program. So you can see that there's a deliberate effort. Unfortunately, in Ghana, most of our youth programs that have been developed at the national level have ended up becoming procurement rackets. For instance, take the very brilliant idea of NAPCO. Even though the originators had a very fascinating idea of how we could immerse the youth in the entire human resource value chain, it suddenly turned into a political fruit where people were only plucking it for their parochial gains. So as leaders, as young people, the consciousness, national level in Ghana, unfortunately, like I said, we've not been able to do much on that. But at the NGO level, at the private sector level, let me take, for instance, the organization I work for. And even though we are into pharma, one of the things we do is to represent multinational companies in Ghana.
Right.
But as much as possible, we create an environment where every single rep who passes through our system would be able to compete globally.
Right.
So even though at the national level, we are not doing so much, in our own small corners, I remember when we used to go to Sunday schools, there was this popular saying that brighten the corner where you are.
Yeah.
So even if at the national level, we are not getting it right, in our own small ways, whether it's a private organization, we look at what the national interest is.
Exactly.
And then we plug in to the national interest.
Sure.
So that is why we will create an incubator system where you pass through, you are able to compete with anybody in, let's say, JP Morgan or in any other multinational company across any other continent in the world. So these are a few, let me say, a few nuggets. I know Emilia and then Aaron would add up more to this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we would come to Emilia, and you would also want to share your thoughts on these questions we have at hand now. And Reginald has given us a very broad view of the thing, putting it into the right perspective. So Emilia will add her points to it from here. Emilia.
Yeah, so I think Reginald has made the work quite easy. I'll just go to the points and then we will sum it up. With regards to education, I have in front of me, I've opened the National Youth Policy.
Right.
And it's 2010, yes, National Youth Policy 2010. And I'm reading some of the interesting developments that they have on how they would develop the young individual in Ghana. And with education, the first point I saw was make development and delivery of education and skills training more responsive to the labor market. I believe our educational system, for some years, we've had conversations around it and about it on how it is not really geared towards problem solving per se, which Reginald just said, but it has always been to produce for a certain market, which we don't even have occupancy or space for. And so problem solving becomes very difficult for us. Let me put it in the context of a Ghanaian growing up, being in school. Whatever training we went through, whatever education we had little in prioritizing our problem solving skills, analytical skills, critical thinking skills. These are soft, which have not been embedded into our educational system fully. And we are hoping that if on the educational level, these things are looked at, these strategies are employed, or adopted, it will help us prepare and become better people. I tell you what, under this educational system and then soft skills development, communication is very key. So we might have a lot of people, and I think Bismarck also raised the issue of getting into the system and everything. We might have qualified people who are not prepared enough to meet the opportunities that are given them because of some of the things that we lack in our educational system. Dr. Nicholas bears witness with me. I think I had a meeting with him on Thursday to meet one official from the Commonwealth. I mean, it was an intimate meeting where we have some young leaders representing to discuss how we can help African leaders to drive their solutions that they've come up with and all those things. One lady stood up and everybody was like, where are you from? Are you even a Ghanaian? Where are you coming from? Because she lacked the ability to communicate her intent, to make very submissions. We will drive an action to propel them to actually help to support us in a certain way, or buy into the ideas, or give us a voice, or a platform to sell whatever we are talking about. And it's made me look at the fact that we have an educational system, but it lacks certain soft skills that needs to be developed with us. Moving on to government, we just need a seat. The government needs to give us a seat in policy making. There will be just some few opportunities for here and there for some of us to actually come and be part of some of the policy making and decision making and add our voice in the name of all the young people in Ghana. I think with the COVID, Dr. Nicholas and I also served on a team that advised government in terms of the COVID policies and other things. But how many opportunities are created like that for the many people out there who have wonderful and brilliant ideas to help us solve problems? There are just a few. So if indeed they believe in the African leaders that they've created, or the young people that they've created, that they can solve the problem and also take over the next mantle that they are saying, able to give us a seat at the table in order to solve or bring our voice and let them, make the wonderful submissions that we have in order to solve the little problems that we have. NGOs, how can they help? Training, very essential. Leaders are not just born. You need to undergo trainings. That is how come for me, it is very essential you find yourself platforms like these. You find yourself fellowship. You find yourself so many opportunities that will help you nurture or be mentored in a certain way that will make you a fine leader. So beyond the talks and everything, I believe these institutions can help in these ways. First, with the educational system being restructured, employing more soft skills, and then with the government opening up the space for more people to sit at the table, and then with a lot of trainings and opportunities for us to also grow our potential. So I think these.
Emilia has also mentioned very key points, and because you don't have the representation from other institutions Emilia had mentioned, what it means is that we are learning from this meeting. And then when you have representation anywhere to speak to any official anywhere, you'll be able to put these points across. And I believe there are lots of people on this call who are handling one or two NGOs here and there. What you need to do, Emilia mentioned very important thing, a skill development. And so we need to look at how we train these people we are impacting in our communities to develop their communication skills, especially because if you can't put your point across, there's no one to help you. If you can't share your vision across, nobody will follow you, which is essentially leadership. So we need to be able to articulate our points and articulate our issues for people in authority to be able to carry it on and do something about them. So these are very important. Let us focus our training on skill development. Let's not push ourselves up there, but let's develop the skill first of all, so that we are able to make the impact we want to make. So we will come to Aaron and take his point quickly, and we'll take our last round of questions, then maybe we'll call it a day. Right, Aaron Atimpe.
All right, thank you, Prosper. So because of time, I'll try to avoid some of the things that Reginald and Emilia have well articulated. I would like to start first off on the issue of giving opportunities to young people. I think we, as young people, we need to realize that not only for the generations ahead of us, even as individuals, it's usually very difficult to relinquish a certain position or something you've enjoyed for some time. So there needs to be a certain effort from young people as well. So we don't just have to fold our arms and then wait for leaders in the generations ahead of us to just sort of call us to the table. And I think that brings me to the issue of skills development that Emilia spoke about. A lot of us young people specialize in calling out the systems, calling out leaders, making so much noise without developing ourselves so much. And then when one of us or a few of us are giving opportunity or a seat at the table, we blow it up because we are not able to make any meaningful impact. And by so doing, we are emboldening the generations ahead of us who are already opposed to giving seats to young people to then have a justification to say that whenever you give them a seat on the table, they are unable to make any meaningful impact. So I think skills development is very key, and that is where the role of the schools or educational institutions come in. And I think one other way educational institutions can help is by supporting movement building. Someone like Frederick Yankee and myself started our journey in the development sector from our days at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, where we started a student organization. And then from there, we got a lot of contacts and then network with other people, and then the rest, they would say, became history. In terms of NGOs, because they are not here and then government, I would like to sort of look at it from two ways. So much of my attention will be focused on how young people can take advantage of some of these platforms. So in terms of NGOs, Emilia mentioned training, so I will skip that. There are internship opportunities, and it's one way that we can develop our skills. Even whilst at school or even after school, whilst you are waiting between jobs or waiting to get your first job, you can take volunteer opportunities, you can take internship opportunities. If NGOs were on this call, it would be good to make the point that it's usually helpful to sort of give some stipend to cover the associated costs. Otherwise, we keep perpetuating inequalities that push people who do not have a lot of resources away from getting the right skills, because then they are not able to move to city centers where a lot of these organizations are based to get the skills that they need. Development organizations can also help groups like, I think my friend from the Upper East region who asked a question about building coalitions or getting your fellows to support. I think bigger NGOs can also help by being flexible and collaborating with some of these youth-led initiatives, just to give them the leverage to be able to build the track record they need to assess a certain level of resources, become very sustainable and independent by themselves. I would end with government, and with government is mostly around policies that I think the point we need to stress, especially for Ghana and most African countries, is that Frederick gave a very practical example about how it's very difficult. The processes are just too strenuous for young people who want to register businesses. And that is where young people can become very functional and even employ their colleagues. Our governments sort of tend to focus on creating very temporary schemes that do not necessarily bring any productivity. So you take a scheme like NAPCO that takes a lot of resources without bringing in as much. So just within a few years, such a scheme is going to collapse. On the other hand, if you had supported people like Frederick Yankee, who is doing so well with a cassava factory in the Western region to be established well enough, they will be able to give sustainable jobs to people. So I think governments need to look beyond giving political handouts to giving real support in terms of access to finances, making business registration processes very youth-friendly for young people to be able to set up. And as young people, we need to look beyond the temporary handouts that we get from government or the political elites and focus more on how can we build ourselves, leveraging on the opportunities that are created by these political actors or governments to become better people in the future. Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. In fact, I was coming to the point of opportunities. what are the opportunities available? And I would love to have taken comments from our panelists, but I mean, all of us on this call, we are running after one thing or the other. What opportunities have you seen for for the youth to take up in order to effect the changes in their communities? Do you have one or two of them you want to share closely to us? Initially, I conducted a poll on this whether we are fairly represented. We got majority said no. I asked whether the first question we got a negative answer, and then I asked again, do you believe you have potential? So people actually believe they have potential. It means all of us are ready to grab an opportunity. And I believe we are preparing ourselves. That's the essence of this meeting, that we are able to prepare ourselves enough so that when the opportunity comes, we don't fail to articulate our points or put our problems across, like Emilia said, of a friend, of a colleague in a meeting, but we are able to adequately handle the opportunities that come our way. So I want to open this question up to us. What are the opportunities? Have you identified any opportunity anywhere that you want to share with us? I see Bernard, a champion's hand up. And Bernard, I would love to visit your cassava factory anytime I get an opportunity to visit the North. And so any opportunity you've seen you want to share with us, we want to share opportunities amongst ourselves. You can put it across. Bernard. So we'll take quick comments from everyone that has anything to say, then we can.
Right, so I think I'll start. Yeah.
Okay. I would come back to you so that you can give us your final take, and then we will take a closing remark from you. But first of all, I want to take from the audience. I see Bernard's hand up. So Bernard, you are up to make your comments.
Right. Thank you so much. And just a correction, I am not the owner of the cassava factory.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. The big man is somewhere in the corner.
Oh, great.
Okay. So one opportunity, I used to run an event business on campus, UCC campus specifically. What we were doing is that I think 2016, I was in the first year in my second degree, my first degree, and then I had a chance to see the number of people, students who needed support to pay their school fees. So I came up with this business idea where we were engaging students, giving them the skill on the job, and then paying them as well. It might not be able to cater for the entire school fees. However, it goes a way to solve or water the grounds to make soften everything for them. It is an opportunity we took. But you see, we hop on a lot of platforms to pitch these ideas to them. That time, John Podo was the SRC president. My proposal, which is pasted here on my wall, I submitted to him. He looked at it, perfect idea. From him, all the SRC presidents that have been there, they have seen this particular thing. But if I am to tell you whether I have received any penny from any organizations, I won't even talk about the what was it now, YEA, and then before it was NBSSI.
Right.
They wasted our time. You understand? So the point I would make is that yes, the opportunities are there, but we are just doing what they call in this and that NATO, no action, talk only. That people have seen ideas. People have seen opportunities they want to take, advantage of and help the community. Because when I was doing that business, the whole thing that gave birth to the business was not to have a fat wallet. No, it was to support students who would have interest in events organizing. Learn that thing. I was not an event organizer myself. I went to learn the thing and the Charterhouse and the Upswing, these organizations, and tried to come and teach students. I had a plan of staying there in Central Region on University of Cape Coast campus, trying to absorb these students who are financially not stable to support them. And if we could even have with the director for academic or the academics and then the financial department, that we can have students even get the opportunity to study on credit and still be working with us so that they can settle the fees even after school and still have their certificates. This is the platform I had wanted to raise. Charlie Meboka, and I'm here. The only thing to talk about is this whole proposal, which is on my wall here in my room.
Right.
I'm just looking for a young man who is interested to, educate him to take over. So that's the opportunity I saw.
Right.
Thank you.
I love your drive, Bernard, and I hope and pray that it works out, because it hurts, of course, when you are trying as much as possible to help people. And when we're talking of leadership, of course, Bernard also takes us into another perspective. Business leadership. And all these things count as youth. So wherever we find ourselves, it counts. And it hurts when you have a brilliant idea and you don't get the buy-in. It really does. And so I hope and pray that it works out. And all of us on this call, if there is any opportunity to connect Bernard to someone somewhere that can be able to help, let us help ourselves. This is what we can do for ourselves, helping ourselves, stretching our arms wide to connect the dots and close every gap in between us. So Bernard, I have you in heart, and I hope that it works out. So we will take a comment from Samson Ola, and then
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
Yes, clearly.
Yes, thank you. In fact, if there is one thing I am drumming home tonight, then that will be brighten the corner where you are. I want to encourage all of us to continue to brighten the corner where we find ourselves. And I want to quickly put this question across, and then I'll add one comment, then I'll be done. Thank you. I see this forum to be very informative and educative, no doubt. But how can you extend it beyond virtual to more physical to inspire, conscientize, and sensitize the youth in Ghana and by extension, Africa? That is my question. And my comment, I subscribe to what Emilia said, that our educational system needs a restructuring or a total overhaul. Part of our problems is deeply rooted in our educational system. That is what I see. And to me, I strongly believe that Africans need to be educated by our own resources, our tradition, our culture, and our own state governance, for us to be able to liberate and elevate.
Right. Ola, are you done, or because we can't hear you again? Right. Samson makes a very important point there. And talking about how we are going to scale up such, I like to take things from one stage to the other, because this started as talking to young people and developing them. Then it scaled up to this point. So the plan really is to get to a stage where, like I said, we put our hands to work. What I love to see, anytime I do something and I see the result of what I have done, I see the impacts of what I have done. For instance, after this meeting, if I see someone out there consciously trying to develop skill development among the young people to take up positions in the future and be able to be effective, it means that I have actually done the work right. And so in the future, we want to expand, we want to go wide and be able to impact more people, bring the skill training to every young African out there, so that, we become people of impact. That's what I am looking at, really. And so, and this should happen within the next 7 years. This should happen. It should be it should come to the scale of an African convocation or an African conference, where we have a lot of people who are actually working and impacting life, come to share their stories and also inspire others to carry it on. So this is what I'm looking at in the long run, and I know that with you all, we'll be able to upscale this thing and be able to impact others. in the years to come. So I will come to the panelists. Thank you, Samson, for your comments. I'll come to the panelists, and I'll first of all take a comments from, did I see a hand up? I don't think so. So I will take a comment from.
But I realized that you were going to the panelists.
Oh,
so
great, great, Xander, great. I forgot to read your comments as well. Hi,
I'm Xander. I am not from Ghana. I'm from the island of St. Lucia in the Caribbean, but you know, it's a transatlantic connection. So I'm here as I love leadership and good governance as well. One of the things that, there are many things that I can speak on, but one thing that I'd really love to point out, especially within this context, is that young people are very valuable resources. And I say that to mean in like a cross-linkage kind of way. Very often as young people, young leaders, young policymakers, we look to those who are already like ahead, or they are a little bit older or a little bit more experienced within the field. And while the intergenerational, you know, connection is important for continuity and that sort of thing, it is also important that we recognize each other as assets, that we recognize each other as valuable resources. Africans, well, I'm from the Caribbean people, a lot of us go out to the UK on Chevening scholarships, Commonwealth scholarships, a plethora of scholarships, and we sometimes stay, and I don't blame anyone who just is trying to, you know, create a better future for their family. But then there are opportunities to partner with and work with other young people, brilliant minds like ourselves, because you were speaking about opportunity earlier. And the scholarship programs that, you know, we go on are a very, very prime example of opportunities that we do not use, we do not maximize, you know. So you have so many brilliant people around you. You're going for lunch with lawyers, doctors, engineers, food technologists, and you can come together and say like, okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to start small, we're going to scale. Very often, we just seek, make room for young people, like do this for young people. And I am from a world where I'm not going to ask for it, I'm going to take it. If I have the wood and I have the saw and I have the materials to make the table, I'm going to build it myself, and doing so with other brilliant young minds around me. So that's your transatlantic contribution. This has been an excellent session.
Thank you, Xander, and thank you for making time for this meeting. Very valuable points you put across there. And sorry if those of you on this call who are not Ghanaians, the examples seem to be situated in Ghana. Unfortunately, we could not upscale the panelists to people outside of Ghana. And the next time we would do as much as possible to have a representation from everywhere possible. So Xander, thank you so much. You made a point in the comment section I forgot to actually read. Young leaders or younger leaders also need to approach leadership roles and policy making with genuine intention to dismantle the systems meant to keep inequality gaps wide. Colonial systems are meant to benefit those at the helm. So it is very important, Xander calling on us to, be able to be intentional, to, genuine approach leadership with also genuine intention in addition to the points you made. So Xander, thank you so much for these comments you made here. So I will get straight to the panelists, and Emilia, I was coming straight to you. So I'll shoot at you, and then we will take your comments on the opportunities and a closing remark, and then I'll take from Aaron and Reginald.
All right, thank you very much. Let me start off with the opportunities. I have happened to benefit, I think, let me start with Reginald. Reginald mentioned some few platforms with which you can develop yourself as a young leader, which I think you should look out for some of their fellowship when they open it up. Apply, get in there and build yourself as a young person. He mentioned Yali. Yali is a very good platform for every young person. So when you see the fellowship being open, I think it's even opened now, you could look at it, apply, and go through the process and the training. It will really equip you. For me, I think I benefited from the Young Diplomats of Ghana, which offered me the opportunity to sit with some makers in the country and even outside the country in terms of diplomacy and policy and advocacy. So the young diplomats also open up. You can check them out. They open up and recruit cohorts, which is very competitive. And as I said, if you want to be out there, you will need to prepare yourself as a young person. Prepare yourself so that you'll be able to stand out. And in terms of when they are picking you for any form of program, you'll be picked because of how prepared you are. My closing remarks, I would say everything or the foundation of every society dwells on leadership. Once the leadership is bad, the society also is bad. And if the society is bad, the state is bad. If the state is bad, the region is bad. And if the region is bad, it affects the whole continent. And if it affects the whole continent, and it means on the international system or on the international fronts, we will have an image painting us as having weak leaders to affect any change in society. And so based on what John said, everything draws and rises and falls on leadership. We must be able to develop ourselves, to pick up the very key skills, qualities, characters, and competence to solve the problems that we have around us in order to affect the changes that we have in our society. I think that is something that will live with us as we go. And I believe that if we collectively solve the issues in little by little in our own small spaces, we will be able to collectively effect change on the continent as we are looking forward to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emilia. Thank you so much. And I'll go straight to Aaron, and I'll take Aaron's comments on opportunities and closing remark.
Okay, thank you, Prosper, once again. And let me just say, let me just recognize my friend Zanda and to say that she's an associate African, by the way. I like her brilliant contributions, both the comment and then also the intervention she made. My voice, Zanda is a friend, and I'm proud that she's been able to join this call and made such very good interventions. And in terms of opportunities, I think a lot has been said. I wouldn't want to belabor the point, except to just add that taking advantage of the opportunities, like we've been saying from the start, begins with looking at the challenges around you. And depending on what you do, then you can carve out what you want to do with those challenges, giving all of the things that surround you. And going back to a point that I think Reginald made earlier, I think one of the things that as young people would miss is the point about accountability. And often when we talk about accountability, we see it more as holding people in higher positions accountable. I think accountability to yourself and then accountability to the people you serve or your audience is very key as a young person if you want to sort of make any meaningful progress. And then also just a last point on the opportunities that Reginald, Zander mentioned a few, Emilia mentioned a few. I just want to add that don't just follow the crowd. Do not go to Chevening or Swaziland or Yali because everyone else is going there. Go to any of those opportunities because you find them a useful addition to what you want to do. If you don't find them so, just take a pause and keep on looking until you find one that would be very useful and then add value to your life. By way of closing, I want to stress on the point of being consistent. And for young people, there are so many challenges, especially in Africa. And I would encourage building solidarity with other young people, other youth groups. And just paraphrasing a quote from Michelle Obama to end, in one of her addresses, she mentioned that for all those who have achieved any good thing in life, they know that challenges and sometimes failure are necessary components for success. They also know that when things get hard, that is not always a sign that you are doing something wrong or you are failing. It is oftentimes a significant sign that you are doing something right. So just be aware that as a young person, whatever endeavor you choose to focus on, there would be challenges. Unless you are not doing anything significant, then you would have a smooth ride. Otherwise, there are going to be challenges. And it's not an indication that you are failing or what you are doing is not worth trying. It's just an indication that you're on the right path and you need to try harder. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aaron. What do I say to Aaron? Beautiful. I mean, that is a good point to make there. And it's important that all of us listened carefully to the points Aaron raised on accountability, especially that we become accountable. Dr. Nicholas raised the point early on that we become people integrity when he was Dr. Nicholas? Yeah, I think so. Character, compassion, and yeah. So we need to clearly be ready and able to become people who are ready to be people of impact, and we might be true to ourselves and be true to the roles we are taking. So quickly, I'll take a comment from Mr. Reginald, and then I'll request that we put our video cameras on. Then we take a virtual picture to keep for this meeting, and then we will take we'll close from there. So Mr. Reginald, before he comes, there is a poll, a post-meeting poll I just dropped. So you just want to complete that poll for me. It will direct what we do next. It will inform us the direction to go. So I just plead on you, all of you, to just take this poll. It's just a 9-question poll. Within 1 minute or some seconds, you'll be done. So Mr. Reginald, we are here for you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prosper. I must confess that I felt very, let me say, honored to have even been considered to be part of the panelists for today's discussion. And fascinating discussion across the spectrum, even to have someone from the Caribbean Zenda join us. It tells you that our umbilical cord has a transcontinental network. And to sum up my thoughts on today's discussion, I would like to first start with, in terms of opportunities, our generation is largely fueled by information technology or the internet. So the internet statistically takes a huge chunk of our lives. So for us to be able to leapfrog, we need to be conversant with the paradigm. And the current paradigm is where the world is moving. Now, in the last 60 years, we had to move across the continent to Europe and to the Americas to be able to tap into the opportunities. But now, thanks to information technology, you can be on Facebook and you could be collaborating with somebody in Asia. You could be on LinkedIn. And I always say that people have very negative perception about LinkedIn. But if you look at the potential of how it can connect you to people across the world, whatever you want to do, definitely you will find a collaborator on some of these social media platforms. One of our colleagues on this platform lamented on his foray into agriculture, where he mentioned so many challenges he was facing. I will recommend that he looks at the page of one gentleman called Francis Obrikran. He goes by the popular name Black Kofi. He's a very jovial person. He's the CEO of Agro Center. I would advise that you kindly look for that gentleman, because he has a very solid, I think that is Bernard, he has a very solid understanding of the agricultural landscape and the problems that you mentioned. Following him for at least 5 years, I know he will have some nuggets that could guide you out of this cul-de-sac you currently find yourself in. how do I want to conclude today? I want to conclude by reminding us of what our very first president said at the inaugural speech of Ghana National College. Nkrumah made this interesting remark, just for you to have the exact words. I will quote him precisely. Nkrumah said, he said, throughout history, great things have often had small beginnings. In establishing Ghana National College, we have taken upon ourselves a great responsibility. Think, study hard, work with sustained effort. As never before, we want thinkers of great thoughts. We want doers of great deeds. This he has recorded in his autobiography. So you realize that the back and forth that we've had today is centered on moving beyond the rhetoric to action. And this was also eloquently expressed by one of our earlier forebears, who was a nationalist in the name of Atuahoma. He made this poignant remark that we should move from the talking. Anytime we are imbued with knowledge or an idea, we should move beyond just cultivating this idea to putting them into action. And that is what this distinguishes accomplished people from people who are always lamenting. Earlier on today, I was watching a movie called Hidden Figures, where Hidden Figures essentially chronicles the life of 3 Black women who worked in NASA. And it was their effort, both from engineering point of view and mathematical calculations, that helped the United States to be able to do their space explorations. Now, there was one particular scene I found very instructive. And this was a scene where Dorothy, she was in charge of training or grooming a bevy of ladies in programming. And even though she was reporting to a principal, she was looked down upon. A window was opened for her to be the sole person to go and program the IBM machine, which will help them in their computation. Dorothy demurred. She declined the offer because she had spent time grooming these ladies for an hour such as that. When the opportunity came for her to be singled out to be promoted, Dorothy declined. She declined because she remembered. And this is the tragedy of many young African leaders, where we join groups like the National Union of Ghana Students and other groups, and the moment we are given a small window of opportunity, we align with the oppressors. When some few candies are dangled before us, we forget that we were once people who wanted to open the door for others. We forget. So Dorothy, for me, was that particular scene was symbolic. That when the door is open for you, never forget that there are so many behind who have to pass through that door. It's very, very critical. Finally, I want to invoke the book In the Chest of a Woman. Usually when you mention Efo Kojo Maugbe, people remember In the Chest of a Woman is the flaming desire to possess and use power. We are always inebriated by the idea of power. But one gentleman on this call made a remark that we forget that for people to become leaders, for instance, in our chieftaincy, in the realm of our chieftaincy, people are groomed. So when you read a book In the Chest of a Woman, you realize that before one of the kings attained a higher position, he was moved and taken to a different realm to be groomed. Yeah. Just as a woman takes 9 months before she will finally conceive, yeah, you cannot escape the inevitable process of grooming ourselves to take over the mantle. It is not enough to say that we want to be in charge, but the process, we need to be conscious that there is a process that will churn out quality leadership. Thank you very much. And I'm very honored to be part of this discussion today. Thank you, Prosper.
I am really happy we've all been able to turn up for this meeting. And it is very important that all of us are leaving this meeting with very key points to guide us going forward. We've spoken about a lot of things, and what stands out is preparation. We need to adequately prepare ourselves. And I mean, great deliveries from everybody on this call, great delivery. And for me, I have taken very key points that I'm going to apply to myself. Can I be a compassionate leader? Can I be a leader of integrity? Can I be one that is not looking for international opportunity, big stage, or stand under big lights, but look in my community and identify some problem that I want to resolve? Can I be such a leader? Can I be a leader that rises over beyond the colors? And when I say the colors is the dividing points of our leadership. We said that anytime we say leadership, we are looking at people in authority, we are looking at politics. But leadership spans beyond politics. Can I go beyond being a person directed by colors to the ideas that I want to implement to make life better for someone? I don't know what you're thinking of on this call, but my desire is that when you leave this call, I mean, start to do something. It could be little among two people for one person, but start to do something. Most importantly, start to do something. And at the end of the day, I mean, we will see the results we want to see. And for everybody that joined this call, I'm very glad you did. For those of you who joined outside of Ghana, very glad you did. And the next time, I hope and pray that we have a representation enough that we can upskill such conversations to bring other perspective from other African countries or other continents also to bear. And like I said, we will take a virtual picture. So if you can, I plead with everyone, just put your video on within 5 seconds. We'll just take a shot and then we will do that. Okay. I'm seeing everybody. I've seen Xander's face. All right. Xander, one day I'm sure we'll meet someone. We'll meet someone doing some great work one of these days. Okay. So
I'm coming to Rwanda this year. Might make it to Ghana. So
yeah. Let's see where we can meet. I'm sure we will. Aaron will schedule a day when we can meet. Right. And once I take the picture, I want to say that you can actually find Aaron social media, LinkedIn, Aaron Atimpe by name. You can find Reginald Sekyi-Brown he uses Facebook a lot of times. I've been talking about, very deep things, history. You all things you can think of. And so, and you have Emilia Apiaminka also on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. You can actually leverage LinkedIn to upscale the impact you want to make. It works like magic. So please look into it. Facebook as well. Many of us see Facebook as a place where we want to have fun and all that. But you can look beyond that. It works out. I know people who are making a lot of impact just with Facebook. So let's look beyond that. We could not delve into the issue of technology and youth leadership. Next time, I'm sure we will talk about that. It's a very broad area, and we want to see what ChatGPT is going to do to us or AI is going to do to us in a decade to come. So thank you all for joining, and bless you. And I want to see you at the top, all of us doing something great. Right. So we started with a prayer. It's just right that I ended on that note. So I will call on Doris Apefa-Kuke. I see you doing vote of thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emilia, Aaron, Reginald. Right. Doris, you give us a close prayer and then we'll move from here.
All right. Thank you so much. Shall we share a short word of prayer? Father, we thank you so much for this gathering. We thank you that You have brought us together as young Africans to learn from great minds. We pray that, oh God, whatever we have heard from our people tonight, whatever we've heard from our leaders, our peers tonight, we will put them into practice. We wouldn't just hear it and sit with it, but we will do something meaningful. And then on the next year of this meeting, we will have testimonies to share to your glory. We thank you for everyone's life, and we thank you that you are equipping us to be great leaders in our small corners where we find ourselves. Thank you, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So goodbye, everyone. I wish we had a whole day to talk. Hello, Xander. Goodbye, everyone. Bernard, William, Benjamin, James, Samson, Nicholas, Emilia, Reginald. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for making time for this. Everybody, Frederick Yankee, Abigail Kwejete, Emanuela Seko, Emmanuel Nketia, Jay, I see you here, Eunice Amlam. AB, I see AB. All right. Thank you.
Also make that. Prosper, I want to take a photo, a virtual photo.
I did.
Okay.
I did. I'm still taking it anyway.
You've even overtaken some. Right. But I didn't turn on my camera.
Oh yeah,
I missed out.
A couple of people.
But good. My fresh face.
Okay. Thank you so much.